Heaped deep in Africa lives a tribe that defies everything we call normal. They drink animal blood, live without clothes, and have shocking rituals outsiders can barely believe. This is the story of the KARAMOJONG, and it will change the way you see humanity. Join us as we learn the most shocking facts about the KARAMOJONG that shocked the entire world. Curious? Join us and let's go!
Number 10. AK-47s in KARAMOJA, when warriors got assault rifles. The KARAMOJONG aren't armed with spears and shields like something from a museum display. They carry modern firearms, specifically AK-47 assault rifles, obtained through complex networks involving military surpluses, black market dealers, and cross-border smuggling from conflict zones in neighboring countries. This transformation occurred over recent decades as cattle raiding escalated from traditional stick fights into militarized operations. A young warrior with an AK-47 becomes exponentially more dangerous during raids, capable of overwhelming rival clans and stealing hundreds of cattle in coordinated attacks. The Ugandan government has launched multiple disarmament campaigns, sending military forces into KARAMOJA to confiscate weapons and arrest those who resist. These operations play out like military campaigns, with helicopters, roadblocks, and door-to-door searches through settlements. Some KARAMOJONG voluntarily surrender weapons, exhausted by the violence and willing to try peaceful alternatives. Others hide their firearms in remote locations, bury them underground, or simply flee into wilderness areas where government forces can't effectively pursue them. The relationship between KARAMOJONG warriors and their weapons goes beyond simple tools. An AK-47 represents power, security, and the ability to protect what matters most in their world: cattle and family. Asking a warrior to surrender his rifle without providing alternative means of protection and wealth generation is asking him to accept vulnerability in an environment where vulnerability can be fatal. The weapons create destructive cycles. More guns mean deadlier raids, which create revenge attacks, which justify acquiring more weapons. Conflicts that might have resulted in a few injuries when fought with traditional weapons now produce massacres. Women and children sometimes get caught in crossfire. Entire communities get displaced when raids destroy their settlements and steal all their livestock, leaving them with nothing.
Number 9. Drinking cattle blood in KARAMOJONG. Among the KARAMOJONG, blood isn't just what flows through veins. It's nourishment, medicine, and a symbol of power and connection. In a land where rain fails regularly and access to stable food sources remains uncertain, cattle represent more than wealth. They're survival itself. Drinking cattle blood isn't symbolic ritual. It's practical necessity deeply embedded in cultural practice. The process demonstrates the KARAMOJONG's sophisticated understanding of sustainable resource management. They don't kill cattle to extract blood. Instead, they make a small, careful incision in a vein on the animal's neck or side, collecting the flowing blood in wooden bowls or hollowed gourds. Once enough has been gathered, they seal the wound with a mixture of mud and ash, allowing it to heal. The cow survives, continues producing milk, and can provide blood again in the future. During times of scarcity, when crops fail and alternative food sources disappear, this blood, rich in iron and essential nutrients, becomes the primary sustenance for days or even weeks. But beyond mere survival, drinking cattle blood carries spiritual significance. Consuming blood from a strong, healthy cow means absorbing that animal's strength and vitality. These moments often occur during ceremonies accompanied by songs, prayers, and dances that honor the spirits and thank the animal for its sacrifice. Sometimes blood gets mixed with milk, creating a ceremonial drink shared during important life transitions. Young KARAMOJONG men undergo initiation rites that mark their transformation from boys into warriors. These rituals test physical endurance, require demonstrations of cattle management skills, and often include drinking blood in front of community elders to prove readiness for hunger, battle, and responsibility. Successfully completing these challenges transforms them into morons, adult warriors, and protectors of the clan.
I have a question for you. First, I would like to say that it is possible to follow the greatest curiosities of our world every day. But to do so, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, are you already subscribed? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Also, take the opportunity to like the video so YouTube will recommend more videos from our channel. So leave your like right now. And now that you have done that, let's go!
Number 8. The Bride Capture Ritual of the KARAMOJONG. Perhaps the most controversial KARAMOJONG tradition involves marriage ceremonies that start with ritualized kidnapping. Today, in most cases, this occurs as symbolic theater performed with family knowledge and approval. But the historical origins tell a much darker story. Generations ago, this practice operated as genuine abduction. A man who desired a particular woman would literally capture her, sometimes with help from other warriors, and keep her hidden until negotiations concluded or until her clan accepted the marriage through honor, pressure, or fear. These kidnappings emerged from tensions between nomadic clans competing for scarce resources. Sometimes, men organized raids on neighboring settlements specifically to capture women as spoils of war, forcing marriage alliances that strengthened one group while weakening another. The practice reflected the harsh realities of survival in an unforgiving environment, where conventional courtship might seem like an unaffordable luxury. Over time, as attitudes shifted and outside influences gradually reached even remote Karamoja, the practice transformed. What was once violent abduction evolved into choreographed ceremony, though some isolated communities reportedly maintain more aggressive versions. The modern ritual typically involves elaborate performance with dances, costumes, and frequently the complicity of the woman herself, who participates in the symbolic capture as part of accepted tradition. Still, the tension between preserving cultural heritage and adapting to contemporary ethics remains alive and debated, both within Karamojong communities and among outside observers who question whether such practices should continue.
Number 7. Karamoja Region, Uganda's forgotten borderland. Deep in northeastern Uganda, right where the country touches South Sudan, there's a place most people have never heard of. The Karamoja region stretches across vast plains where the sun beats down without mercy, temperatures climbing past 104 degrees Fahrenheit for months at a time. Rain doesn't follow any schedule here. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. And when it fails, the land cracks open like old leather. This isn't tourist country. There are no luxury lodges, no guided safaris, no paved roads leading to scenic viewpoints. What exists here is raw, unfiltered survival in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. The Karamojong people call this home, and they've done so for centuries, watching empires rise and fall while maintaining traditions that would seem impossible to outsiders. Their territory sits isolated from Uganda's modern cities, cut off from government services that many take for granted elsewhere. No electricity hums through power lines. No hospitals stand ready for emergencies. Water doesn't flow from taps. Every single day presents the same fundamental challenge: survive. Women walk miles under the scorching sun, heavy containers balanced on their heads, searching for water sources that might have dried up since yesterday. The landscape itself tells you everything about why the Karamojong developed the way they did. When your environment offers nothing easily, when every resource must be fought for, earned, or carefully preserved, your culture adapts accordingly. Strength becomes currency. Resilience becomes beauty. The cattle that can survive here become more valuable than gold because they represent life itself in a place determined to test every living thing that calls it home.
Number 6. Modern cattle raiding in Karamoja. Cattle raiding isn't some relic from the distant past among the Karamojong. It happens now, today, in ways that would shock most people scrolling through their phones in comfortable homes. Young warriors organize nighttime expeditions into neighboring territories, moving silently through darkness with one goal: steal cattle from rival clans. These aren't casual thefts. They're dangerous operations that can turn deadly in seconds. Men carry weapons, adrenaline runs high, and when things go wrong, people die. The KARAMOJONG don't see this as criminal activity. They see it as proving yourself, as demonstrating the courage and cunning required to build wealth in a place where opportunity doesn't knock politely. A successful raid transforms a young man's status overnight. He returns with cattle, which means he suddenly has marriage prospects, respect from elders, and a legitimate claim to warrior status. The logic makes perfect sense within their world. If you can't earn cattle through trade or inheritance, and if society measures your worth entirely by herd size, then taking cattle from others becomes a rational path forward. The raids follow unwritten rules and traditions. Certain clans have historical rivalries stretching back generations. Specific territories are known as dangerous zones where conflicts erupt regularly. Young men grow up hearing stories about legendary raids, about ancestors who captured dozens of cattle in single nights, about battles fought over herds that determined family fortunes for decades. These stories don't serve as cautionary tales warning against violence. They function as instruction manuals, teaching tactics, celebrating bravery, and setting expectations about what real men accomplish. The Ugandan government has tried repeatedly to stop cattle raiding through military intervention, weapons confiscation programs, and attempts to settle the KARAMOJONG into permanent farming communities. None of it has worked particularly well, because you can't simply legislate away traditions that connect directly to survival, identity, and the entire social structure of a people.
Number 5. KARAMOJONG Youth. Tradition meets mobile phones. The KARAMOJONG stand at a crossroads that's playing out in real time, visible to anyone who visits the region. In some settlements, you'll see young people wearing traditional dress, participating in ancient ceremonies, and maintaining the pastoral lifestyle their ancestors followed for centuries. Walk a few miles to another community, and you'll find teenagers wearing donated Western clothing, using solar-charged mobile phones, and questioning whether the old ways still make sense. Missionaries, aid organizations, government programs, and increasing contact with Uganda's modernizing society all push the KARAMOJONG toward change. Schools get built in some areas, though attendance remains sporadic because children are needed to herd cattle. Clinics offer medical care, though traditional healers still handle most health issues using methods passed down through generations. NGO workers arrive with plans to transition the KARAMOJONG from nomadic pastoralism to settled agriculture, farming instead of following cattle herds. These interventions come from genuine concern about poverty, violence, and suffering in KARAMOJA, but they also reflect fundamental misunderstanding about why the KARAMOJONG live as they do. Their culture isn't a collection of random traditions that could be easily swapped for modern alternatives. It's an integrated system where each practice connects to others, where cattle ownership determines marriage possibilities, where warrior status provides security, where tribal identity gives meaning to individual lives. Young KARAMOJONG face impossible choices: embrace modernity and potentially escape poverty, but lose connection to ancestral traditions and community identity. Maintain traditional ways and preserve cultural heritage, but struggle in a world increasingly dominated by formal economies, nation-states, and systems that don't recognize cattle as legitimate currency. Some attempt hybrid approaches, participating in both worlds, but that creates its own tensions and complications. The question isn't whether the KARAMOJONG will change. Change is already happening, accelerating every year. The real question is whether that change will preserve anything meaningful from their extraordinary culture, or whether global homogenization will erase another unique way of understanding human existence on this planet.
Number 4. The Manyatta KARAMOJONG. Walk into a KARAMOJONG settlement, and the first thing you'll notice is how different their homes look from anything you've seen before. Low to the ground, shaped like cones, these structures seem to emerge organically from the earth itself. The roofs are thatched with dried grass, woven tight enough to keep out the sun's assault. But the walls, that's where things get interesting. They're made from a mixture that would make most outsiders uncomfortable: mud mixed with cattle dung. Before you react with disgust, understand the genius behind this ancient technique. The dung doesn't come from just any cattle. It comes from the family's own herd, making each house a direct extension of their wealth and identity. When mixed with mud and applied to the walls, this combination creates an incredibly effective insulation system. During those brutal days when the temperature soars above 100 degrees, the interior stays remarkably cool. The material breathes, regulates temperature, and costs nothing except labor. Women handle the construction and maintenance of these walls, smoothing the mixture with their bare hands, creating surfaces that are surprisingly uniform and solid. Children play nearby, learning by watching, understanding that someday they'll continue this same tradition. These houses represent far more than simple shelter. They're portable. The KARAMOJONG maintain a semi-nomadic lifestyle, moving when resources demand it, and these structures can be dismantled and rebuilt relatively quickly. They're also defensive. Built low and compact, they offer protection during tribal conflicts, which remain a genuine threat in this remote region where cattle raiding between groups continues to this day.
Number 3. KARAMOJONG polygamy. Polygamy exists in various forms across many cultures, but among the KARAMOJONG, it operates with particular rules and social significance. A successful man here can have up to 5 wives, though reaching this number requires substantial wealth in cattle. Each wife typically lives in her own hut within the family compound, creating a complex household that demands strong organizational skills and fair treatment from the husband. For the man, multiple wives represent more than romantic relationships. They indicate his status as a provider, his ability to negotiate successful marriages, and his standing within the community. More wives means more children, which means more labor to manage the herds and more security in old age. The system also creates social networks between families, strengthening clan ties and creating alliances that can prove crucial during conflicts or hardships. From the women's perspective, the situation appears more complicated to outside observers. Most KARAMOJONG women grow up understanding that their marriage will likely be arranged, that their future depends largely on negotiations between families, and that romantic love, as Westerners understand it, may not be the starting point. However, this doesn't mean affection never develops. Many couples grow closer over time through shared experiences, children, and the daily work of survival. The first wife typically holds special status, often having more authority over household decisions and the other wives. Younger wives may look to her for guidance, creating a hierarchy that helps manage the complex dynamics of plural marriage. Competition can arise, particularly for the husband's attention and resources, but cooperation often proves more practical given the demanding environment where everyone's labor contributes to family survival.
Number 2. The Moran Dance KARAMOJONG. During KARAMOJONG ceremonies and celebrations, dances erupt with raw physical energy. Men jump, spin, and engage in athletic displays that leave them dripping with sweat under the relentless sun. Women watch these performances carefully, and they're not just casually observing, they're evaluating. The sweat glistening on a man's torso, the muscles moving under his skin, the endurance visible in his eyes, these send clear signals about virility, strength, and desirability. In contexts outside formal marriage arrangements, particularly among younger people not yet committed, some women choose intimate partners based heavily on these physical demonstrations. The man who can dance longest, who shows greatest stamina, who doesn't collapse from heat exhaustion, he's often the preferred choice. This might seem primitive to outsiders, but there's sophisticated logic operating here. In an environment where survival depends on physical capability, where walking miles for water is daily routine, where protecting cattle from raiders requires real strength, how better to evaluate a potential partner than by watching his body perform under stress? Sweat becomes tangible proof of endurance, a visible indicator that this man can handle the brutal climate, can work all day managing livestock, can provide and protect. But there's also biology at work. Male sweat contains pheromones, chemical signals that can influence attraction and trigger unconscious responses in those who perceive them. While responses vary across cultures, in societies like the KARAMOJONG, where bodies are exposed to elements and nature, natural body odor isn't hidden or masked, it's valued. In this extreme environment, the natural scent of a man's body becomes a kind of silent language, an invisible signature transmitting information about health, potency, and genetic fitness. For some KARAMOJONG women, that scent, combined with visible effort, proves more seductive than any romantic words could ever be. Number 2. The Moran dance KARAMOJONG. During KARAMOJONG ceremonies and celebrations, dances erupt with raw physical energy. Men jump, spin, and engage in athletic displays that leave them dripping with sweat under the relentless sun. Women watch these performances carefully, and they're not just casually observing, they're evaluating. The sweat glistening on a man's torso, the muscles moving under his skin, the endurance visible in his eyes, these send clear signals about virility, strength, and desirability. In contexts outside formal marriage arrangements, particularly among younger people not yet committed, some women choose intimate partners based heavily on these physical demonstrations. The man who can dance longest, who shows greatest stamina, who doesn't collapse from heat exhaustion, he's often the preferred choice. This might seem primitive to outsiders, but there's sophisticated logic operating here. In an environment where survival depends on physical capability, where walking miles for water is daily routine, where protecting cattle from raiders requires real strength, how better to evaluate a potential partner than by watching his body perform under stress? Sweat becomes tangible proof of endurance, a visible indicator that this man can handle the brutal climate, can work all day managing livestock, can provide and protect. But there's also biology at work. Male sweat contains pheromones, chemical signals that can influence attraction and trigger unconscious responses in those who perceive them. While responses vary across cultures, in societies like the KARAMOJONG, where bodies are exposed to elements and nature, natural body odor isn't hidden or masked, it's valued. In this extreme environment, the natural scent of a man's body becomes a kind of silent language, an invisible signature transmitting information about health, potency, and genetic fitness. For some KARAMOJONG women, that scent, combined with visible effort, proves more seductive than any romantic words could ever be.
Still curious? Then don't stop now. The next mystery is already waiting for you. Just click the video on screen. I saved it just for you. See you there, curious one.